Okay, students, in continuations with your Team 7, that is the city of Vijayanagara, our today's topic will be the royal centers, page 179. Vijayanagara Empire hi Google Meet khanin the urban core theng hi kan ti to a chuanin voina chuan royal centers in kan chunzomang The royal centers was located in the southwestern parts of the settlement, and about 30 buildings complexes have been identified as palaces here, okay? And one difference between these structures and temple is that the latter were constructed entirely of this masonry, while the superstructures of the secular building was made up of these perishable materials. And these royal centers is where the Vijayanagara kings and their private households lived and conducted the daily business of this ceremony and government. Royal centers hi lalber lalchung kwate chennania Vijayanagara lalkha chimthang lama an chenga chuan hemi hmuna hianin lal in ro pui tak tak somthum lai mei hmu tur awm bawk ani chuan hemi hmuna an temple sak te hi chethei mei lo tura siam lungcher lungrem hlir an hmang bawk ani chuan building dangan sa kholam huam lo an building sak thung ero hi chu bungroke thei chiang kha an hmang ve tho ani royal centers a hianin lalchhung kwa te an chenga chuan an ni tin hna le sarkar ro relna hi hetatang hianin an kalpui thin ani okay now let's see the Mahanavami Dibba. The other names of this Mahanavami Dibba is the House of Victory. It is a beautiful stone platform situated inside the royal enclosures of this Hampi, and we can say that it is one of the most impressive structures in Hampi, okay? And it was built by this King Krishnadevaraya in 1513 AD after his conquest over the kingdom of this Udayagiri, present-day Orissa. And this grand platform was used as a stage by the king to watch the army march past, and the war games and the royal processions that were held during this Mahanavami festival. And this is also known as this Dasara festival, okay? This Mahanavami Dibba, the stone platform is about 12-meter high, and the huge structure is a square platforms with 3 layers that are richly decorated with this beautiful carving, and the carving at the lower portions, Dasara Dibba, are the most fascinating ones, and the sides of the platforms are also engraved with elaborate carvings of these margins, royal processions, musicians, elephants, and animals, okay? And some of the carving depicted foreign traders as well. And the platforms of these front stairways is decorated with ornate carvings, elephants, horses, shoulders, and processions. And the top of the platform provides a splendid view of the surroundings areas of this Vijayanagara Empire, okay? Mahanavami Dibba mingdang chu ne na in tinania do san moi tak lunga tanga siam ania Vijayanagara building structure siam to zong chuan mi ril rukhoi tak ti it kan soi thei hia lo me he platform hi Krishnadevaraya in 1530 na Udayagiri tuna Orissa kan ti khu ahne nuwa adin ane chuan he do san sau tak a hianin thil chi hrang moi deuh mai an tar ani chu an chei moya milim chi hrang te an kera a awm zia kha chip chiar takin an soi fia le thin ani chuan he platform hi kut chi hrang man nan good chi sang sang lom nan an lo mang chin bok ani. Okay, we go to the next, that is other buildings in the royal centers. One of the most beautiful buildings in the royal centers is the Lotus Mahal. This Lotus Mahal was named by British travelers in the 19th century. And while most temples were located in the sacred centers, there were several temples in the royal center as well. And one of the most spectacular of these is, this one is known as the Hazara Rama temple. And this temple was probably meant to be used only by the kings and his families. Building dang royal centers timoy mei tu pakhat le chu Lotus Mahal hene. 19th century British kwazin min amhing hi apua nge nge nia chuan building dang le mit titlai mei tu chu Hazara Rama temple he nia. He temple bi khi lal le achung te che in an mang thei thung ani. Okay, next, the sacred centers, choosing a capital. The site of Vijayanagara was inspired by the strain of this Virupaksha and Pampadevi. The northern end of the city touched the banks of this Tungabhadra river. It was rocky and hilly area, and there is a saying that this Pampadevi, the local mother goddess, did penance in these hills in order to marry Virupaksha, the guardian deities of this kingdom. To these days, their marriage was annually celebrated in the Virupaksha temples in the pre-Vijayanagara period. Okay, and in other words, this area was associated with many sacred traditions, so it is known as sacred centers. Okay, and it is likely that the very choice of the site of this Vijayanagara was inspired by these sacred traditions and temples, and it was said that the king of this Vijayanagara claimed to rule on behalf of God Virupaksha. They signed all royal orders as Virupaksha and often signed in this Kannada script. However, the rulers of this Vijayanagara not only developed but also innovated the earlier traditions. They display royal portraits, sculptures in the temples, and the visits of the king to this temple was treated as an important occasion. Okay, and then he was accompanied by all kinds of important nayakas. Vijayanagara lalaram hi mishang shangin mu chaka tipur mei tu pakhat le chu an mithiang hlim te thlan Virupaksha le Pampadevi te hian ni. An soidan phei chuanin Pampadevi an mother goddess an pathian nu hi Tungabhadra lui bula tlang ramawma lungmun ania chumi mun chumo chuta chuan Pampadevi hianin sual man rul tlak na ahan ne ni penance kan ti chuan sual man rul tlak na amze chu Virupaksha anei thei nan a sual kha ahanin then thiang hlim angai ani chu Virupaksha kha mi thiang hlim ania mi thiang hlim nei tur khanin hanin thoi thiang hlim ti na ni chu chuan anin nei champha hi an lom thin bawk ani an soizel dan phei chuan Vijayanagara lalpo hi an pathian Virupaksha ai o tu ani an ti chuan lal hianin temple atlo don renin mi poimo tak tak nayakas kan ti tu te nge ni kha in la siam nayakas kha military chiefs kan ti te kha hianin an joy om thin ani. And next we go to Gopuram and Mandapas. Gopuram is a monumental entrance tower or the main entrance of the temple, and Mandapas is a pillar hall meant for public meetings and gatherings on festival occasions. Especially in southern India, they functions as this gateway through the walls that surrounded the temple complex, And these Gopurams' origin can be traced back to the early structures of these Tamil king Pallavas. Okay. And the whole of the temple were used for these different purposes, like images of these gods were placed at some space to witness spatial programs of dance, music, drama, and many more. And the other halls were also used to celebrate the marriage of deities, and some halls were meant for these deities to swing in, and spatial images were used on these occasions, and these images were different from those which were kept in the central shrine. Okay. Gopuram hi shiat rengna lungphun Vijayanagara luka ania omania kulsang tak ani amoy sin alema in huang hian chuan temple a hian hall an nei boka an hall hi thil chi hrang hrang ti nan an hmang ani in nei lom nan te po an hmang thin ani ka soile du chu an pathian biak na mai cham ro pui le ming thang em mei dang le chu Vithala temple hi ania he temple a hian an pathian biak ber chu Vithala hi ania chuan an pathian Vithala hi Vishnu a hriat reng nan ti sa tak nein pian hmang form nein an siam ti na ni chu chuan he Vithala pathian hi Maharashtra mi le sa ten an betlang pui ani. And next we go to plotting palaces, temples, and bazaars. After the initial surveys of Mackenzie, information was pieced together from travelers' accounts and inscriptions. In early 1980s, an important project was launched to document the material remains of this Vijayanagara in details. Over 20 years, dozens of scholars from all over the world wanted to compile and preserve these informations. And next we go to mapping the enormous structure. At first step, the entire area of this Vijayanagara was divided into a set of these 25 squares, and it's designated by a letters of this alphabet. Then each smaller square was subdivided into smaller squares. Then each of these smaller squares were further subdivided into yet another unit. Okay. Hunrei tak Mackenzian survey ane nu khan Vijayanagara chanchin asia tamna ber chu khwalzin mi te record atangin le thuziak inscription atangin chuan kumsom ni nulama pheke chuan scholars tam tak in le khabua siama he Vijayanagara mon hi hum hal andu ani ole chuan adang le chu mapping chung chang kha mapping an ti na hian enge thente zel khangai ni chu chuan an thente zel ta chan chu survey nei na hi an nei hi thil ol survey nei hi thil ol ai ani lawani mo tianga an thente zel khan structure hrang recover kha a ol samani hemi wang hianin an bazar te an kalkong te an temple te lianwak nge temple lianwak lem lo te kha an endik survey nei kha alo ol sam pha ta ni chu okay, now let's see the last, that is biased descriptions of the bazaar. Pice says that the Vijayanagara Empire provided the best city in the world, and he described that there was a broad and beautiful streets, and there were all sorts of rubies and diamonds, pearl and clothes, and he says that we had everything we wish. Peast added that in every evening there was a fair where many common horses and necks and all kinds of garden stuffs and woods are all there in the streets, he says. Okay. Pace the khan in engtin nge Vijayanagara Bazaar kha asoifya. Mo. He says it's the best city in the world. Khopui khovela khopui nuam berani at the top me ni chuan streets a khan Vijayanagara lalrama khanin lunglu chi sang te a oma engkim mei hi kan duanga piang hi a omvek me ani ate ne chuan tlailama ni se intil himna doro pui tak tak te oma sakorte te chuanin huana man tur chi man ro chi sang te an kotlera khanin a omvek me ani ate ne ole khati zong kha voina kan explain thei chu nia. Thank you all.